So going back to Ella's tax return, the first thing that we want to get to is our line 1, right, which is wages and salaries. So we've got two numbers that we need to add, right? The $25,067 that she made at Great Northern and the $31,689 that she made at Oracle. So I think if you add those together, her gross wages are $56,755, right? Pretty straightforward. Everyone get that? No problem? Okay. Then she has one adjustment to or from income. What is that? She had student loan interest, didn't she? And in order to carry that number over, well, first off, how much was her student loan interest? Yeah, she has got some hellaciously large loans if she's paying $4,600 a year in interest. And you wouldn't have known this other than I told you. What's the most we can take annually for student loan interest? $2,500. And then what was that concept that I told you sometimes that phases out? When would that happen? If she gets what? Higher income. And again, I'm not going to give you anything tricky. I'll tell you what you need to know, which is its max is at $2,500 and she's not high enough income to phase out. So she gets the full $2,500, doesn't she? So what form does that go on? Yep, we have to go to our Schedule 1. And really, there's no adjustments to income. And there's a student loan interest deduction. And really, it tells you exactly what to do. Enter this here on Form 1040. So I'm going to carry that number. Over here, and it's going to get us to what's kind of the nickname that we call adjusted gross income? AGI. So I can definitely refer to that on an exam simply as AGI. And it's the source of all your income items plus or minus everything on that Schedule 1. I'm not going to throw something at you we haven't looked at, right? I'm going to keep it really straightforward. Okay, is that what she pays tax on? No, how come? You still get a what? You get the greater of your what or what? Standard or itemized deductions. And again, I'm not going to hold you responsible for knowing the laundry list of them, but can somebody give me like some examples? Go ahead.
Standard
of itemized deductions. Mortgage interest. If you have a mortgage, what four things go into your payment again? P is what? Principal. I is interest. T is taxes, and I is insurance. P-I-T-I. The I, the first I, principal interest. The interest portion of your payment is deductible as an itemized deduction. And if you have a good-sized mortgage, which many of us do in this market, your mortgage interest alone might kick you over the standard deduction. I can't tell you I've ever seen anybody that itemizes without mortgage interest. That's usually the number that throws you over. Put on optical and all that, but only the amount over what? 10% of your AGI. That number right there. And just for your own information, AGI is a number that's used for lots of calculations in tax. So we only get our, so in this gal's situation, she would only get medical bills if they were over how much? If she itemized? $5,426. That's a lot of out-of-pocket medical bills. Or maybe not. That's about what your health insurance policy looks like. Okay, and then the other big ones are what? So we did mortgage interest, medical bills over 10% of AGI, charity, and taxes. Real estate taxes, property taxes, personal property taxes like license plates you put on your vehicles, state income tax, anything like that is deductible.
So if you're very wealthy and making a ton of charitable contributions, that's within your favor because it deducts more.
For every dollar that you donate to a charity, if you itemize, you're not really out of pocket that whole amount. Why? If you give to charity and you itemize your deductions, because it's a tax deduction. So is it dollar for dollar, like a credit? It's the amount you gave times your highest tax bracket. So if I wrote a check to the United Way, here's a good example. Our community right now just broke ground. It's pretty exciting on the first, our first homeless shelter for families. Right? All of our homeless housing, other than individual churches, they're not appropriate for families. So they brought together a group of people and they asked 1,000 people to write a $1,000 check to get $1 million to start this project. So if I wrote a check for $1,000 to them and I'm in the 30% tax bracket, how much did it really cost me? $700. I wrote a check for $1,000, but I got a write-off for $1,000 times 30%, my highest marginal tax bracket. I saved $300 in taxes. So I was really subsidized by the government to make a charitable contribution. That's what deductions are. And that's why deductions are things that are socially desirable. Buy a home, have a mortgage interest deduction, make charitable contributions, pay your taxes, right? Okay, so that in our simple cases, we're not doing that. We're using standard, which is, does everybody get the same one? Same standard? It depends what your filing status is. And she's what? Single, and therefore what's her standard deduction in this year? 12.2. And those numbers go up every year.
For the exam, do we need to know anything more than the standard single deduction?
No. And I will actually give you that. I'll give you the tax tables and I tell you what to use for standard deduction. Yeah. So singles 12.2, and you just for your own information, married filing jointly is what? 24.4. It's double. Okay. Okay, so now we're going from AGI down to, what's TI stand for? Taxable income. That's the amount I'm actually going to pay tax on. So her TI, is this the number I take to the tax tables? I think it is. Isn't this what I go calculate my tax on? Right? Mm-hmm. All right, so tax tables, I thought, I didn't print those. So, I have them printed for the test, but I didn't print them today. So where do you go get them, like where would we go get them right now? Yeah, we could go to irs.gov for sure. I've got it in the PowerPoint, I think, so just give me a second. Let me pull that up. And what's her highest marginal tax bracket? 22%. How is that different from an average tax rate? How is her highest marginal tax rate different from her average tax rate?
Can you say it one more time?
Sure. So we all agreed that her highest marginal tax bracket is 22%, because that's where her last dollar of earnings was in that bracket, right? But is 22% what she pays on average? No. So we're going to have to figure that out too. Is that number going to be higher or lower than 22%? Obviously lower, right? Because she paid some of her income, she paid 10% on, some she paid 12% on, right? And some she paid 22% on. Because how much is her TI? 42,055. So she just squeaked into this for her highest marginal tax bracket, right? Okay, so using this, the first $9,700 is taxable at 10%. What's the difference between 9701 and 39,475? $29,775. So that chunk is taxable at 12%. And then the amount over 39,476 is taxable at 22%. So, I think on the next page, here's that math down there. And what I got to when I did that math was $5,110. Anybody have a discrepancy with the math?
I just rounded, so it's $1 more.
I could care less.
Right.
I have a question again. So you said how is her highest tax bracket different from the average?
Yeah, so we're going to look at that right now. Now that we know what her taxes are, and we know what her TI is, can you figure her average tax rate for me? What's her average tax rate? We see here what her tax liability is for the year, and we know what her TI is. Was it 42055?
Yes.
Yeah. When you're doing tax planning, which of these two rates do you use, marginal or average? It kind of depends on what you're doing. And the example I just gave you about charity, because I get this all the time. If I want to give away $1,000, they can actually give an amount over $1,000, can't they? To really be out of pocket $1,000. So, or the example I just gave you, like, how much am I going to save on my taxes? That's usually what people are showing. If I give X, how much am I going to save? Do I use average or highest marginal? Highest marginal. When people come to me all the time and they want to know, how much should I get taken out of my paychecks on a weekly basis so at the end of the year I'm even Steven, then what do I use? You got to use this guy, the average.
Can you go through that one more time?
Sure. So, and I'm not going to get this complex on the test, but I just want you to think about this. People will say, first off, you do have to be able to explain the difference between marginal and average. Can you do that?
No, can you start from there? Yeah.
Sure.
Great.
Sure. Marginal is simply looking at that tax table and being, what's the highest bracket she's in? She paid some at 10%, some at 12%, and a few bucks at 22%. So her highest marginal tax rate is 22%. That's really important for making decisions like deductions, because whatever you're deducting, you get to take that times your highest marginal tax bracket, and that's how much you're saving. Conversely, I want to maybe make some more money. Do I get to keep all of that? No, I've got to pay 22%, my highest marginal tax bracket, plus what other tax? Which is, you guys need to know this, how much does FICA tax or Social Security and Medicare? 6.2 plus 1.45 equals 7.65. We looked at that on those pay stubs. We've talked about that a couple times. So to finish answering your question, Emily, the marginal tax rate is your highest tax bracket. It's what the next dollar of income, you're gonna have to pay that much in tax, or if you're having a deduction, you're gonna save that amount. Okay? An average tax rate is what we just, well, I won't answer now, is what we just calculated when we took 5,110 divided by, what was that, 42,055? And that says, on the average, how much do I pay for every dollar of taxable income? Right, because a little bit was at 10, and then there was some at 12, and then there was a little bit at 22. It averaged at 12.15. Want taken out of each paycheck so that you're even at the end of the year. I don't want to take out 22%, because that's only a piece of my income is taxed at 22%. Is the math clear on that, or the concepts clear? That's better. Okay. Sometimes we just need to hear things a couple times. Okay. So, how much, so is this the amount she has to write a check for?
No.
How come?
She had withholdings.
Yeah, she had withholdings. She paid in, and this is called FIT, right? Federal income tax. She paid in $3,721 with this paycheck, or with this employer. And she paid in another $1,673 with these guys, right? So in total, she paid in $5,394. She overpay or underpay? Overpaid. With somebody like this who just has straight W-2 income, is she going to want to apply that forward to the next year or get a refund? She's going to want to get a refund. I just want a check, or more appropriately, a direct deposit. I have clients that won't put their routing and account number on electronic files. Probably the most heavily encrypted data dissemination software, probably one of the top 10 in the world. That's not where, believe me, hackers are going to get your routing information. It comes a lot quicker if you do that. If I'm somebody that makes estimated payments, and remind me again what that's for, who would I be if I make estimated payments? If I'm really highly tipped, mostly for our purposes, and again, I don't want to get over our scale here or over our scope, but if I'm self-employed, right, I have a professional dog walking business, right, or I'm a computer consultant, and I do everything on my own. Is somebody taking out taxes and submitting them for me? No. I'm just sitting at home cashing checks from clients. How do I get my money to the IRS again? What's it called? 1040-ES. 1040 estimated payments. And I have to calculate an amount and send it to the government how many times a year? 4. Can you just get even with them at the end of the year? I mean, you can, but you're going to pay a penalty because it's not okay. I mean, I have to pay every time I get a paycheck. Why is it fair for you to hold on to your money all year and not get even until April, right? So it's a pay-as-you-go concept. You guys with me? So to tie that back into this, if she was self-employed and she was getting a refund, what would she most likely do rather than actually get a check for $200? She would just roll it into her first estimated payment. Right? I think you would cut me a check and then I cut you a check. So that what I'm trying to get at there is she wants to be refunded, but if she was making estimated payments, she would be down here on line 22. Just apply this forward to my 2020 estimated taxes. The tax return that you have to do for the exam won't be any harder than this. You'll have to calculate marginal and average. We're going to take a look at Montana now, and you need to understand the overview of Montana, but you won't be responsible to do one for the exam. Okay?
When you say calculate marginal, do you just mean recognize?
Or not calculate,
what the
recognize it.
highest
Yeah. You just pulled it, yeah. Montana, right? So let me just start by making a statement, which is, I have so many pieces of paper up here. It
Can you
is.
go back to that last page really quick?
Sure.
Do you put negative numbers ever on?
No.
She gets a refund? No.
No. So, no, everything's quoted. No, that's not completely a true statement, but in the section you're talking about, Emily, that is a true statement. It's not negative numbers, it's positive.
Great, thanks.
Yep. And down here, if anybody needs to follow up with it, is the math on the tax calculation. Okay, so the first statement I want to make about this is that this number, Montana, always starts with federal AGI. In other words, that's sort of the launching point for doing your Montana tax return. So looking at your Montana tax return, what line does it ask for federal AGI on? And let's see, what were those numbers up here? 56,755. 56,755. 56,755. And 2,500. Okay. In other words, what I'm saying is this top part of Montana just replicates your 1040. The only thing that's different, well, the things that are different about Montana is that your standard deduction's much less. And you get something called an exemption. Does that sound like a good thing or a bad thing? It's a good thing. It's like another number you get to subtract before you go to the tax tables. We used to get exemptions for the federal tax return, but we don't anymore. In Montana, your exemption is $2,510 per person. How the heck would you know that before I told you? In the instructions. I don't know what the number is from year to year. I have to go look it up just like you do. Well, it's not true, my software tells me, but in general, I go look it up to verify that I know what I'm doing. So what are the two things in lines 12 and 13 that I get to subtract? My Montana standard deduction and my exemption. And the standard deduction, it told you to go to a worksheet. I'm not going to spend a bunch of class time going over the worksheet, but if you'd done it, you would have come to $4,710. Again, you're not responsible for this, you're responsible for the concept. So I could definitely ask you, like, how do federal and Montana tax returns differ? How are they different? What's one of them? Montana has an exemption, feds don't. How else? The what?
Tax brackets.
The tax brackets are way different. How else? Standard deduction's way different. Okay, so you don't need to be able to calculate Montana, you just need to be able to speak to it. The reason that I'm having you do this to you guys is really so many of us, when we're uncomfortable with something in our life, whether it's I don't know, taking care of our pet or our backyard or our money or whatever, we hand it over to a professional, and probably in good, I mean, we should trust them if we're paying them, but we have no way to assess whether or not, like, are they doing a good job taking care of my lawn? Well, yeah, until the whole thing dies or gets infested with aphids, then they haven't been doing a very good job at all. So I want you to have some way of being able to kind of look at your own stuff, like it really assess prior your tax return came from. And these are people that have rentals and businesses and property, and I'm like, wow, so you've got a kid in college, where's your American Opportunity Tax Credit? What? It's like, dude, that's $2,500. Now we need to amend your tax return. So again, I'm trying to just give you a little bit of empowerment so that you can look at it for reasonableness, right? So basically, again, without going into the deep calculations here, because you're not going to need to do this, I'm going to show you the tax table though, and I guess I'll have you do all that. So adjusted gross income minus standard deduction minus exemption, TI for Montana, 47,035. I'm going to put up the tax table and make sure you can all calculate the tax. So you probably should write that little number down somewhere. Her TI for Montana was 47,035. Here's the tax table. So even if you didn't do the tax return, you should be able to tell me right now, does she owe money or getting a refund? You got to calculate her tax, and you got to see how much state income tax you paid in, and then tell me, do I have good news or bad news for her? Basically says if your taxable income is more than this, but not more than this, then here's the math you do. So it's just one algebraic statement. Can you guys see in the back?
I know.
I don't.
Give me a second, but I got
Let me see if I can make it bigger. Oh, sure I can. There we go. They have built it all in to this number. Okay. It is progressive. Okay. Some's taxed at 1, some's taxed at 2, some's is taxed at 3, etc., etc. So this doesn't work quite like the federal one, does it? Let's see, what did I get? I got, did you guys get 1389? Well, no, okay, for the tax. Yeah. How much is her TI?
47,035.
Yeah. Well, 47,035. And it says if your taxable income is more than 18.4, then you've got to pay 6.9%. and then subtract from the whole thing $587, right? Then you've got to compare that to how much she paid in, and what I'm looking for is, does she have good news or bad news? Is she getting money back, or is she paying in? I've got her getting a nice refund. What'd you get?
I need to do this.
Okay. What do you have her getting back? I got 932. We got to calculate how much her tax was. Probably. Sure. So this one's tricky, this 4710. That comes from worksheet 5. I've got that up here. I'm not going to go into that with everybody that looks a little over. So when I do that math, I get her tax liability at $1,389, yeah? How much did she pay in? She paid in off of 2 W-2s, right? And that the box that you're looking at, you're not picking up federal income tax now, are you? You're picking up state income tax. And when I added those guys up, I got to 2321. So when you call her, you can tell her you're getting 232 back plus 932. She's not even going to wince at your $300 bill because she's still up $900. It's not very easy to call someone and tell them they owe a shit ton of money and then give them a bill. That never makes them happy. Okay, ask questions. Do you feel like you understand a basic 1040? All right. If you do, then let's go through the tax formula without looking. So if you were explaining to your mom income, then we have that weird little Schedule 1, which is a whole bunch of what? Well, part of it we didn't, the top part was all additions. We didn't use that. We used the subtractions piece. So there's some adjustments. And this isn't a tax class, so we're not going to go into it. And then you come to a number called what? Not yet. AGI, adjusted gross income. Then from that we subtract the greater of standard or itemized. And that takes you to your taxable income. Then you've got to go calculate your tax. And then there's two things we haven't spent, I've talked about it and you need to know this, that's why I'm re-going over this another time. There's a lot of things, but for our purposes in here, there's a couple things that we get to apply against that big number. Say $5,100, oh my God, does she have to write a check for that? Well, of course not. One thing she's done is what? She had withholdings. She also might have estimated payments. And then what's that other really magic thing that's a dollar for dollar reduction in your tax bill? A tax credit. And the big things you get tax credits for are kids, higher education. I'm not gonna go. There's a long, huge long list. But those, in most of our lives, those would be the most common, most applicable. But there's a whole slew of things. Tax credits or tax deductions are more powerful. Why? dollar for dollar reduction in your taxes. I just gave you the illustration of the $1,000 check to the homeless shelter. Was that a deduction or a credit? A deduction. If somebody said, I'll give you a credit for it, how much would that $1,000 have cost me? None. Okay. And people, I cannot tell you how much people use those terms interchangeably and have no idea what they're saying. Oh, I got this write-off, no, that's a credit. Or I got this credit, no, that's a deduction. Or blah, 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 well, that's neither. So that's terminology. All right, wrap that up. So, next item on the agenda today is probably to take a look at the homework, huh? So, yeah, so these, the answers that are going to be in the solutions, let me just make sure you understand this. The answers that are going to be in the solutions that I'll open up in case you want to do other homework is going to be from 2014 tax tables, so they're not going to be right. So I'm going to write the right ones up here. So don't. You did use the one from the book?
Yeah, because they have the examples, so I just come up with that.
Oh, yeah, those are 2014 tax tables.
Okay.
But I mean, if you have the idea, you have the idea. Did anybody else use the tables from the book? All right, yeah, no, the reason that I've updated the PowerPoint slides is just tax, our schedules have changed dramatically past anybody remember the name of the big act? The TCJA, Tax Cut and Jobs Act 2017, radically altered both corporate and individual income tax law. Okay, number one, Sophia Johnson is 24 years old, single, lives in an apartment, has no dependents. Last year she earned, I think I'll just turn this guy back on. No, this guy. Earned $55,000, $69.10 of her wages were withheld. In addition, she has interest income. What the heck's that? What's interest income?
Tax.
Yeah, like if you own some bonds. So all my items of income $55,142. Okay, so that's both her income and her what in this case? It's her items of income, but does she have any Schedule 1 adjustments? She does?
No.
I don't think so. So that number is also her what? AGI. What's the greater of her standard deduction or her itemized deductions? 12.2. So therefore, where am I at here? 42,942? Is that right? Yep. So then I'm just going to go to the tax tables and do what we just did. She's got a little, and then she's got very close TI to the last person, right? So her highest marginal tax bracket is 22%, I think.
So,
Go ahead.
I don't know so why did we not, so after I subtracted the standard, I also subtracted the $6,910 that she had in withholdings.
Oh, we're
And
not
then
there
went
yet.
to the bracket.
No, we're not there yet.
So you have to wait to do that before you-
yeah, so this same number. Normally, you've got some adjustments. Then we go calculate the tax. Then we subtract all of our payments, withholdings, and credits. And you get the amount due or refund. Right? Anyone got a tax number for me? Throw it out there. Nobody did their homework?
I did it. I did it, but I did it subtracting that.
Okay, oh, by the way, when you,
Would it affect the number though?
oh yeah, because if you subtract that 6,900 before you go to the tax tables, your TI is lower by $7,000.
Yeah.
And they won't reach that.
They won't get to the 22% bracket, yeah. Okay, so are you telling me I need to calculate this?
Was it 5,306?
That sounds so right. Do I have a second on the number? 5306?
Yep.
Did she make estimated payments? No, those 1040 ESs, did she do that? No. Did she have withholding? Yes. 6910. I don't see any indication of a credit either. Therefore, $53.06 minus $69.10. Is she paying $16.04 or getting a refund? You have to come all the way to the bottom number here to get the points for this. Plus 3. If you use the 2014 tax tables and you did everything right, you can still get the points. But we will never ever be using old numbers. Okay. Questions? You should be able to spit out the tax formula pretty easily. All right, number 2. This required reading the book. If Olivia is single and she's in the 28% tax bracket, calculate the tax associated with each of the following transactions, and then it very specifically tells me here to use the capital gains rates in effect for 2014. You wouldn't know this, but they haven't changed. So first off, we've talked...
Which one are you doing?
2. No, I jumped to 3. Sorry. 2. We didn't have to do 3. Okay, number 2. Emma Williams received the following items and amounts of income. Help her calculate her gross income and the part of her income that's tax exempt. So this one's asking for what's includable in her gross income and what's exempt. And tax exempt basically means you don't have to pay tax on it. So let's just go item by item and see where we think it fits. Salary, do you have to pay tax on it or not?
Yes.
How about dividend income?
Yep.
What is dividend income again?
Like bond interest.
Close.
Money
Not bonds, it's
Money from stock.
It's from stock. If I'm a shareholder in the company and they're returning some of their net profit to me, that's called a dividend. This may be more information than you want, but I'm going to tell you anyways. Many dividends are capital gain dividends, which means they're taxed at a much lower rate. How about the gift from mom? How about if mom had given you $5,000?
Generally cheapest.
Still okay. What if mom gave you $50,000? Mom has to pay gift tax. Sorry? You're allowed to give per person per year $15,000. So I could give my son, my daughter-in-law, my granddaughter, we could write them a check for $45,000 a year, and that's just that. If I write them a check for $450,000, I've got a hell of a big gift tax bill. Why? Why would they care whether or not I write my kids a check for $500,000? Huh? It's not income. I've already paid tax on it. It's just a transfer. What are they worried about? It's very funny that I'm using me as an example because it's never going to happen in my life. You could gift all your money, and where do they want to get the final tax bite from you? Anybody know this term? When you die, it's called estate tax. With this administration, the estate tax has gotten so high that nobody but the uber wealthy is going to pay it. But for a long time in Montana, I would see regular old people hit with it, like a rancher who died with land. And his land was worth $1 million, but he didn't have 2 cents in the bank. And all of a sudden he owes estate tax. And guess what happens? Then you start carving up ranch land up the Potomac and have the cutest little McMansions you've ever seen. And that's because they had to pay their estate tax. Estates are now like, okay, so gifts, but you have to watch for gift tax. Child support from ex-husband. You pay tax on that? What if my ex-husband paid me alimony instead of child support?
Yes.
That is taxable.
The estate tax is only used when it exceeds 11.4 million.
11.4 million. Yeah, that applies to exactly no one I know. Interest on savings account, yay or nay?
Yes.
Yep. Rent.
Yes.
She received it. So she's renting something to someone.
That's a little vague. But
That is, but I went back to the instructions that she received the following amounts. So she received rental income. Taxable or no?
yes.
Absolutely. Loan from bank.
No.
No.
Interest on state government bonds. My guess is you had to go look this up.
No.
It's not taxable. And here's why. An example is, well, we just did this, in Missoula. I don't know if you guys read, the University of Montana just rewrote $160 million worth of bonds. So they were issued at really high interest rates like 15 years ago. And right now interest rates are nothing. So we went and paid off our debt and reissued these really low interest bonds. And what you think that the economy is on fire in Missoula right now, it just netted the university $63 million in interest savings that we're going to put all into infrastructure, and it's all going to be student-centered. It's going into the dorms, the chemistry labs, the classrooms. It's not going to like salaries or research. It's like buildings. So that's going to be another,
I said we're all going to be graduated by the time that's done.
Right, but it's still good for the community, Josh, the whole.
Well, I'm just hoping.
So yeah, lots of jobs. Obviously, we can't even begin to fill all the jobs for this building.
This was an upgrade, if
Huh?
anybody was at the other campus.
Yeah, who here knows where we were for the last 25 years? Did you guys go to classes there?
Yeah.
No, I came over from Helena to see the college,
Mhm.
and then as I was getting my advising appointment, she was just like, "Oh, by the way, by the time you start, you're going to be over at the really cool new building." And I was like, "Sold."
Well, so for those of you that don't know, we were in an old Missoula County Public School building between the fairgrounds and Sentinel High School. We had, oh wow, fluorescent lights that hadn't been replaced. We didn't really have walls. The carpet, wow, I can't even describe it. It was pretty dismal. So yeah, this was a $33 million bond issuance. We had to go to the legislature 4 times for it. We started, 4 times ago.
Going to trailers to see the advising.
The trailers, super cold in the winter, dying in the spring from heat. Yeah, it was awesome. Okay, so 1 point here, 1 point there. What does that equal? Somebody give me a number here. What's my gross income? One more time.
I got 35,500.
35.5. There's another 5 in there somewhere.
I got 35,400.
That's right.
450.
Yeah.
That looks right. And 8 and 56, 6,400. Okay. And then explaining the difference between a tax credit and a tax exemption. I want you to show me the difference between what they're worth. Explain and calculate the differences resulting from a $2,000 tax credit versus a $2,000 deduction, for a single taxpayer in the 25% bracket. So if I've got a $2,000 credit, what does that save me on my tax bill? If I have a $2,000 deduction and I'm in the 25% bracket, what does that save me? So the difference in the value is $1,500.
You didn't want us to like do it out, how much was owed?
Oh, you could. Did you do all that?
Yeah.
Yay.
And so I took the 40,000 and then minus the standard deduction, the 12.2 standard deduction, and like.
Oh, well, you overachievers.
I thought it was what we were supposed to do.
Yeah.
Explain and calculate the difference resulting. And the answer is just $1,500. And I bet you if you look at all your work, the difference is $1,500.
No, because I used the actual tax table, not the 25%.
Yeah, me too.
I used the actual.
But she would have, unless the $2,000 dipped her into another bracket.
It does.
It does stretch. This is a super easy way if they're over the percentage by at least on the credit. Okay, do you know how to read a pay stub? I would go back and practice that.
What do you mean by that? Just knowing what, like.
Well, we went through 2 whole pay stubs and we did all those calculations off of them, right? No, the pay stubs that we did with chapter 2. Not the W-2s. You don't remember. That is really in your notes. I think I asked you to turn in Ella Berry, right? And I said I was going to give you some points for that.
Just the federal.
Turn in what you got. I want to see that you at least tried Montana. Yes.
How many points?
So,
focus on?
oh gosh, I'm sort of fading away here, aren't I? Let's see. So there was 3 points on this one. Yeah, let me back up here. So 3 points on the first one, 2 points on the second one, and 2 points on the last one. So it's a total of 7. Make sure your name's at the top and how many out of 7 points you got for this assignment. Just do that. So that's just one thing, right?
Can we not keep these for the test?
Oh, sure. Yeah, we can. Okay, so let me just back up. So the assignment number 1, 2, and 4 that we just went over is worth 7 points. I need that with your name on it and how many points you got out of 7. Okay, and pass that down this way, please.
Are we making our spending?
So that's one thing. The second thing is I had asked you to do Ella Berry for points, but if you feel like you need that for the test, that's fine. I don't need to give you points. So, I mean, I'm fine with that. Huh?
Do we do it after the test?
We want points. Are we gonna remember?
How many points do you got?
Just hold on. I've never done it, I've never given points in the past. I threw in Montana, so I thought I mean, just hold on, forget about that. Okay. The last thing is your spending journals were due today, and that I obviously need with your names on it. Pass that to the right. So you're handing me.
I actually didn't bring it to class, but I have it on a document. I emailed it to you.
Okay, so back to the test. This is what I mean when I say, can you read a paycheck? We did all these calculations, right? Here's so-and-so's pay stub. Can you read it? Can you verify the Social Security tax and the HI tax? Can you figure out how much has been deferred into their 401k? Do you know what a deferral is? Okay. Obviously, you're going to need to be able to do a lot of present value and future value work. You're going to need to be able to do present value and future value. You always start by writing out your formula, right, and figuring out what you're solving for. I'll give you the tables, so you don't need to worry about having a book or a... You have to have a regular calculator. You can't use a smartphone. For obvious reasons. I hate that that's how it is, but it is just how it is. And then lastly, you're going to need to do either a cash budget or a net worth. And then you'll have to save that and submit it to Moodle. So please do not be somebody that, you know, when the time's run out for the test, it's like, oh my God, I don't really know how to save a file or how to attach it to Moodle. If you don't know how to do that, you need to stay after class right now and make sure you do.
So we come to this class for the test.
You're going to come to this class for the test. There's for sure one person, and I suspect a couple more, that want to have the test taken in the Academic Support Center. So please, if you're comfortable, just stay after today and let me know, or email me and I'll make that happen. Otherwise, I'll see everybody. The only thing you're going to have open is Excel.
No
Okay.
Sand, John, or anything, just
No. No. Yep, and you're sending your homework and your spending journals with your names on it down this way.